All right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of good crypto news stuff for you today. And the first thing I want to talk about is our almost bull run. As you can see on the 11th, we really started to climb. We were climbing a little bit before that as well. And it looks sort of like a whale purchase, and it created some FOMO. We had a little bit of dip, and it was trying to recover, but then we had another major dip. And it looks like proportionally about the same. So it could have been the same person, could have been the same whale, trying to create a Bart Simpson, as you can see here. And this is sort of a wacky Bart Simpson, a Bart Simpson nonetheless. And then when they see that the FOMO isn't going to continue, this is about the time it's going to dump. You create a big short, and then you dump all the rest of it, create a dump on the market, and then hey, your short fills. Look at that. However, we can't always chalk it up to that, but that's usually Bitcoin's MO for quite a while now, whale manipulation. But along came an article that is definitely not good for crypto. And of course, it's from the US government, probably the government in the world that hates crypto the most, but is too cowardice to actually ban it, right? The US has always been like that. It's always harder to buy cryptos in the US. It's basically impossible to buy ICOs. Back in the ICO craze of late 2017, early 2018, etc. If you were a U.S. citizen, you had to do a KYC on ICOs, and they'd be like, "Oh, we can't sell it to you," so you ended up having to use a VPN, right? But so I want to talk about this, and this article is from the 12th. And I'm not going to read this one. I actually like the other one a bit better. But Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, bashing cryptos once again. And this isn't good at all. So a blow to Bitcoin as significant U.S. crypto crackdown is suddenly revealed. Now, everybody always seems to think and defends Bitcoin, and so do I. Of course I want Bitcoin to succeed, but if anybody ever asks on like a Reddit or anything like that, is there a way that Bitcoin could be stopped? And the one thing that I never hear people say is that, yeah, government could easily stop Bitcoin. Now you might be like, whoa, I thought MrSotko, wait, MrSotko, I thought Bitcoin is impossible to stop. Well, sure, as long as people are running nodes, as long as people are mining in the world, anywhere in the world, all across the globe, you can't really stop the Bitcoin network unless you just shut down the internet for the entire planet. It's just not gonna happen. Sure, the SHA-256 private key is virtually impossible to brute force. And when I mean virtually impossible, I mean like right next to impossibility. So yes, the Bitcoin network, completely unhackable, 51% attack, extremely, extremely unlikely. Although it's very hackable when you have your crypto on an exchange or an individual, like their computer, etc. However, one thing I never really see people saying is that it's pretty easy to stop Bitcoin. Bitcoin's price could dump to just a couple $1,000s or less in a matter of days. If just a few countries, like maybe like the UK or Germany, France, the United States, even Russia, all of a sudden said no more Bitcoin. It's illegal for you to receive it, to send it. It's illegal for you to mine it. No more exchanges. It's illegal as a business to accept it or to transact in it. And then pretty quick, there would be a lot of FUD, and immediately people would sell it off as soon as they could before it became officially illegal so they could get their money and get out. And that would cause a dumping like we have never ever seen before, even bigger than the Chinese exchange banning dump in September 2017 when it was $5,000, dumped us down to $3,200, which statistically that is a major crash in the price of Bitcoin. So the US Bitcoin and crypto community had a rough week. Its future is looking bleak. This week, I didn't mean to rhyme there. This week, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin warned significant new Bitcoin and cryptocurrency regulations are on their way. Minneapolis Federal Reserve President Neil Kashkari branded cryptocurrencies as, quote, a giant garbage dumpster, and the Department of Justice called Bitcoin mixing a crime. I almost have to agree with the government on that one. I mean, if you're taking your money and then you're putting it in a laundering service, that's money laundering. I've never done that with Bitcoin, and I don't necessarily oppose other people doing that because cryptocurrency is all about privacy. But I mean, you got to hand it to them on that one. Technically, kind of, it is money laundering. However, the news failed to move the Bitcoin price, which remains up almost 50% since the beginning of the year, which I'm going to disagree on that, as this came out on the 12th, right about here. And once that news really hit all of the networks, all the news outlets, etc., then we can see this literally the next day, the next morning. In fact, it was like 1, 2 in the morning when all this hit. And then, the rebound of people buying that little dip. And then finally the whale capitulating so he could fulfill his short, his or her short. So Mnuchin, who last year echoed U.S. President Donald Trump's criticism of Bitcoin and crypto, told the Senate Finance Committee the U.S. Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, is preparing quote, significant new requirements around cryptocurrencies and will be seeing a lot of work coming out very quickly. We want to make sure that the technology moves forward, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that cryptos aren't used for the equivalent of the old Swiss secret number bank accounts. Well, that's what crypto is. I mean, that's what it is. So unfortunately, that's what it's going to be. Mnuchin said adding FinCEN and the Treasury Department more broadly are spending a lot of time on this. And I bet they are. I'm sure the governments are working very clandestinely to keep a big eye on this and prevent crypto from really breaking out. In fact, I was just reading another article. I should have saved it for y'all. Where there is a position for hire for the U.S. government, where if you have a PhD, you're supposed to do research on because the U.S. dollar is so important to the United States, because anytime it is used out in the world outside of the United States, it gives the United States jurisdiction if there was a crime. And of course, the United States loves to play police. And this is a real position. I found it on Crypto Reddit, and it takes you to a link. And in that, they also wanted to know, they wanted you to do research using AI, etc. And this is like a high-level PhD position where the U.S. dollar will collapse, what will cause its collapse, who will be responsible for its collapse, and how it can be prevented. So the United States is extremely nervous about the U.S. dollar collapse, and Bitcoin is definitely a competitor. Now, I'm not saying its transactions can fulfill all of the world's requirements, but it certainly is a competitor of people pouring money into it and then it not really moving around, because money needs to be moving all the time. So if you're hodling millions of dollars into Bitcoin and it's not moving around, that's sort of a problem. Meanwhile, adding the assault on Bitcoin and cryptos coming out of this week, Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari said cryptos lack the basic characteristics of any stable currency. Well, yeah, I mean, they're more like stock and they're more like digital gold, but some of them are indeed stable coins, but those are very centralized coins. But sure, but that doesn't necessarily, but that's like saying that like, a football lacks spherical qualities. And you go, well, yeah, that's true, but what does that have to do with the ability to throw a football? That doesn't really mean anything. You could say that about a lot of things, like, oh, my Nissan Sentra lacks the ability of any kind of off-road vehicle. And you're like, well, yeah, but it's not an off-road. It just isn't. You know what I mean? That's like saying apples and oranges, apples aren't red. Or excuse me, like, oranges aren't red. And you're like, well, okay, but what is that? How is that a bad thing? Like, what is the negative? What do you mean exactly? In comparison to what? So the reason that the dollar has value is because the U.S. government has a legal monopoly on producing the dollar, said Kashkari. At least you admit it. Speaking at a Montana event after asked whether he would want his 1-year-old daughter to be gifted a treasury bond or Bitcoin for her next birthday. In the virtual currency and crypto world, there are thousands of these garbage coins out there. Literally, people have been fleeced for tens of billions of dollars, and finally the SEC is getting involved in cracking down on this. Elsewhere, the Department of Justice prosecutors this week branded Bitcoin mixing software designed the mask of the origin of Bitcoin transactions, money laundering. In the indictment of Larry Harmon, who this week was arrested for his alleged involvement in a money laundering conspiracy worth more than $300 million, the Department of Justice referred Harmon Helix's software as money transmitting and money laundering business. The Bitcoin and crypto regulatory landscape in the U.S. has long been found stifling by the nascent crypto industry, with some choosing to more favorable regions such as Switzerland. Social media giant Facebook, which last year launched its cryptocurrency Libra, and yet it hasn't really quite launched it yet, opted to base its independent governing Libra association in Libra, which will launch its own crypto in 2020. And that is, in a nutshell, what the U.S. government is thinking about Bitcoin. Now, why they did say they want the technology to move forward, but they also want to control it in every way, shape, or form. And this is the problem with Bitcoin becoming too popular. The government probably was aware of Bitcoin when it came out. Of course, intelligence agencies, if they did not create it themselves, which there's actually, interestingly, quite a bit of evidence to say that they did. And again, a whole different tinfoil hat thing to get into. However, when, the first few years of Bitcoin, it was used for what it was intended to be used for. In the white paper, Satoshi Nakamoto states, hey, yes, Bitcoin has virtually no value, but it's supposed to be used for internet things. If I want you to create me a picture online, an artist's work, a photo, a thumbnail, something small, a little micro payment for micro jobs. And I don't know if it was ever really, only Hal Finney really thought that it was going to be worth thousands or hundreds of dollars or even tens of dollars or millions of dollars. So it was never really intended to be too popular, or was it? We really don't know. But when it does get popular, that's when the whales come. That's when people start saying, now you're messing with my money. And people are going to get in on it. Everybody's going to be mining around the world. There are places in the world where people live on just a few US dollars a day. So if you were actually able to get a hold of computers and mine, you would do well. And of course, the powers that be can't have that. If you're living in a third world nation and you're starting to do well because you're actually using cryptos and mining cryptocurrencies, well, we can't be having that, right? That's not good. So then the governments have to intervene. And I think the government's intervening in a way is a good thing and a bad thing. I think it's a very bad thing because they can't stop somewhere. It's always got to get worse and worse and worse. Governments need more and more and more and more control with just little tiny regulations over time. And yet it's a good thing because these rampant scams, ICO crimes, where you can just accept millions of dollars from people and then never even give them a token at all. And just say, oh yeah, your token's coming on the 10th. And then you get millions of dollars and then you just shut down your website and just live good on your tens of millions of dollars. And nobody ever finds you. Nobody ever gets arrested for these sort of things. I can count maybe just a few events where these scammers have actually been found and arrested. And they deserve punishment. So it's sort of a catch-22 in that. But moving on here, Alex Jones. I'm not going to read the whole article, but he finally becomes a Bitcoin believer, which, hey, might be a good thing because Alex Jones does have a big following, not as big as he did when he was removed from Twitter and YouTube and all kinds of things like that. And then, iTunes and all sorts of things for just basically being kind of a kook. A harmless kook. He's said some bad things. I don't mean to be like I'm stepping in front of Alex Jones and the bullet here. I couldn't really care less. Is Alex Jones cool? It's kind of funny. I like the Joe Rogan podcast with him on there. That was pretty funny. A stoned and drunk Alex Jones was quite hilarious, to be honest. But really a harmless guy, and was removed off of like pretty much all social media ever. And you could argue, yeah, he said some things that people really didn't like, or some things that were pretty horrible, but that's not really illegal. Anyway, in a must-see video discussion between Alex Jones and Max Kaiser from the Max Kaiser Kook Report. The world's gonna end, the world's gonna end. Max Kaiser. The two men talk a lot about Bitcoin. Jones says he likes how Bitcoin brings diversity to the marketplace. He points out how BTC can never be shut down, unlike money in an offshore account. Kaiser, visibly in his element. Jones explains to his listeners that he previously didn't endorse Bitcoin because he wasn't sure. He says he would never tell them to go out and buy something if he wasn't sure about it, except for all of his like herbal supplements and bone broth and stuff that have no basis. Like, oh, eat your ginkgo pills and you'll be like immune to radiation or something. I don't know. Go get your bone broth. He says he would never tell him to go out and buy something he wasn't sure. However, on reflection, it's smart to diversify. He says, you're right. I should have gotten involved in Bitcoin a long time ago. He continues to justify his concerns over Bitcoin since following it. The space seems to be full of crap coins, but now all the scams and fly-by-nighters seem to have left. And not quite, but we'll go with that one. Kaiser clarifies that there are still plenty of scammers in the space. Thank you for Kaiser for clarifying that, including Bitcoin Cash. Oh, good job, Kaiser. I got to give it to you on that one. And Craig Wright. Oh, man. Dude, Kaiser on it. He's on it. However, anything with other than Bitcoin is fool's gold. Alex notes, except for Ethereum, at least Ethereum, Litecoin to some degree, but Litecoin's viability, that used to be my favorite coin, period. And then its viability just, especially after he sold all of his coins, helped dump the price of Litecoin down to pretty much the lowest it had ever been. Not good. And then no privacy on it, and the fees are pretty much similar for Bitcoin and Litecoin now, with Litecoin still lower, but lost a lot of its viability. Alex notes that he's seeing big money going in, and key figures like Jack Dorsey, and he says the market appears to be stabilized. He asked the best way to get involved in Bitcoin. Kaiser said he would take a three-prong approach, start by stacking Satoshis daily for $1 through Cash App to build your position. You should then download a Bitcoin wallet. If you become a serious player, he recommends signing up for an account with Kraken. He also says it's not too late to get into crypto. Although, I suppose Kraken is like the Dollar General version. It's like the dollar store version of the U.S. exchanges. Kraken is like oddly slow. Like whenever you click on something, it takes forever to load the new thing. So if you're if you're really being productive and going around from coin to coin, flipping around, Kraken is the worst exchange for that. They are so slow. I'm not sure what engine they're running on or what servers they're running on, but that is the slowest exchange I've ever used. Normally when you click on anything on the internet, it's just boom, and it just pops right up. Kraken, just click, sip your coffee. Oh, wow, it worked. And then it just, but okay, fair enough. Jones may have missed out on buying Bitcoin at $100 or $1,000 or whatever, but he says, Kaiser says he'll still make 40 times returns when it's worth $400,000. Well, in the coming years, maybe. I think it's going to be quite a while before it would do that. And then again, I think maybe, I think the government, the U.S. government, I think many other major governments might actually really be attacking Bitcoin. I think the more popular it gets, the higher the price it gets, the more people are going to be worried about how much money is shifting around in the Bitcoin network that the governments just can't control. And I think it's going to get worse and worse the higher that Bitcoin gets. I think asking for a higher price Bitcoin is dangerous. I think that the higher that it goes, the more eyes are going to be on it, and the more eyes that are on it really eliminates what it's for. We already have like Wall Street and institutional investors into Bitcoin, which makes no sense. It's completely against what Bitcoin is. We already have whales and billionaires and bankers and investors into Bitcoin, which is against what Bitcoin really is. If you read the white paper, it's really, I mean, you get the impression that's really for the average person to mine on their average computer, so that you can send very small average payments to somebody for things that they do on the internet. And now the governments are looking at it. Whoa, they're like, whoa, there's way too many billions in this. There's way too many billions getting shifted around that we're not getting that money for. And when Bitcoin's at 400,000, that's going to be what? I mean, what would that market cap be of Bitcoin? At least $1 trillion just for Bitcoin alone. I don't even know. Let's just say well over $1 trillion getting shifted all over the place all day. So the full volume of the day could be, trillions of dollars. It's definitely something that they just don't want. So moving on here, Roger Ver says he didn't sign that 12.5 Bitcoin Cash proposal. Bitcoin Cash and like the ABC development crew decided on a 12.5% Bitcoin Cash miner tax, which made everybody revolt, because adding a miner tax, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, and I would argue even Bitcoin SV, the three like major SHA-256 algos that you would use with your ASICs. Some days it's going to be Bitcoin that is more profitable. Some days you might switch to Bitcoin Cash. Some days you might, God forbid, switch to SV, et cetera, right? And so they're all in competition with each other to get that hash rate. And when one price goes way up and your profits for switching are going to be higher, you're going to do it, particularly if you have a big warehouse filled with ASICs and you want to get that most every penny out of it. So adding a 12.5% tax on Bitcoin Cash, not that I really care about Bitcoin Cash, I'm just saying it's a terrible idea. It's going to lower the profit of Bitcoin Cash by effectively 12.5%. So if you're already just a few percent off or so from Bitcoin, from day to day, et cetera, week to week, depending on the difficulty adjustments, now just give yourself a 12.5% handicap downwards on Bitcoin Cash. Nobody's going to mine it. That's going to lower the hash rate. It's going to increase the possibility of a tax. It's just a terrible idea. But now they're proposing a new 5% block reward tax, which again is not as bad, obviously, but it's still bad. Now you're just giving yourself a 5% handicap on Bitcoin. And it really makes no sense. So in a YouTube video, Roger Ver, chairman of Bitcoin.com, which is everybody's favorite website, which should just be changed to BitcoinCash.com. I don't know why it's even called Bitcoin.com. Declared that he did not agree to put his name on the original Bitcoin Cash miner tax proposal. I bet. I didn't sign this. There was definitely discussions, and I thought the talks were still ongoing when all of a sudden this was released with my name at the bottom. Oh, you did put your name on the bottom? Somebody just did it for you? Okay, that happens all the time, right? I don't think my name was released with the intention of getting one on over everybody. I think it was a lack of communication, lots of time zones. What? So, like... Sorry, Roger Ver. Sorry, Roger. But, like, time zones, man? Time zones? Really? Like, you don't have, like, a cell phone or a map or, like, Google or just, like, common sense of what time zones are? You just, like, that's why they forged your name on the bottom of a 12.5% minor tax paper? Is it they because of time zones, that's why your name was forged on there? Sense. No, I got you. No. No, I got it, guys. I got it. No. I got it because time zones, name forged, 12.5% money in your pocket from everybody doing work for you, right? No, I got it. Shortly after the proposal became public, Bitcoin.com issued a statement saying the plan required greater consensus with the Bitcoin Cash community to have any success. As previously reported by Bitcoinist, the blog stated Bitcoin.com will not be supporting the plan unless a consensus emerges on the matter. Yeah, unless everybody just agrees to have 12.5% of their money stolen from them, right? I mean, for your development, right? So it's not even so we're losing all of the decentralization here. We're just throwing that in the trash. Whoa, fade away! Oh, into the trash. Decentralization ball, fade away, right? Because if you have this ABC development group that's taking money from miners, you've just thrown all these. It's over, right? For Bitcoin Cash, even the 5%, even a 1%, it's over, right? The decentralization is gone, right? Because now you're just giving your money to this development group in hopes that they make your coin better, right? Now, Bitcoin Core development group is bad enough, right? But at least they don't take all of your money. This is a terrible idea. It's such a terrible idea. I can't believe it's even being proposed. I mean, just ask for donations. I don't know how to fund yourself, but this is not the way. This is a terrible idea. Don't set a precedence like this. I mean, Zcash was bad enough, and that coin went nowhere. It's like that Spider. Remember, guys? Remember Spider-Man, and they had like Macho Man Randy Savage in there in the cage. He's like, "You going nowhere, right? You put that miner fee on your coin. You going nowhere, dude." Quote, right? But anyway, let's head to CoinMarketCap again, and you can see that everything's pretty much down at the moment. Bitcoin SV pumping for, no reason, because whatever, I don't know, Calvin Air or something probably pumping it to make it look like it's a real coin. But everything pretty much down at the moment, and I really argue that it was this news here that is pretty bad, obviously, it doesn't say anything specific, but it just gives you a real good glimpse at the fact that governments around the world are really hating on Bitcoin. And the more popular it gets, the more Bitcoin is essentially going to hurt itself, which is a weird conundrum. The more the market cap, the more important it's going to be for governments to control, regulate it. And once they do, you could argue a lot of currencies, and you could argue barely that Bitcoin, has been taken over. It has been infiltrated, period. Institutions are on it. Banksters are on it. The governments are on it. Major whales are on it. All things that Bitcoin was resisting is now because there's money, right? Wherever there's money, people are going to go. Nobody has any money, so they got to be mining. They got to be getting in on this. The whales, there's no monetary system in the world that we can develop for the average person like ourselves that the whales aren't going to get into. They're always going to go, "Oh, I smell money," right? And even though we're picking up dimes off the street, they're like, "I smell money. Those guys are picking up dimes. Let me go over here." And while we're picking up dimes off the street so that we can buy a Burger King sandwich to feed ourselves for the day and a bottle of booze under our bridge, they're going to be like, I bet I can do that better than them. I can pick up more dimes than them. And they're going to roll up in their excavator and just grind into the ground and pick up way more dimes than all of everybody else. And meanwhile, us low class are just getting tossed out of the way by this excavator. They're just swinging the excavator arm and taking our dimes off the street. And that's exactly what happened with Bitcoin, is that it was for the regular people. You could mine it on your laptop. You could mine it with your regular GPU. And then it was like, oh, well, some corporation is going to come along and be like, hey, we made these ASIC miners for you that we were mining on for like 2 years before we gave them to you. But we got these ASIC miners for you, even though we got way, way, way better technology. In fact, that reminds me, how Bitmain operates is that they make a miner and they produce a bunch of them, mine it with themselves, and then sell it to you later. Meanwhile, they already had S7 miners when they gave you the S3 and the S5, right? They already were mining on their S7s, and when they sell you their S5s, they're already mining on their S9s, right? Then they sell you the S7s when those become less efficient for them. And that's the way it is, because you can't, in technology, you can't just develop something way ahead of where you are and then sell that thing that you developed way ahead of time, because all that development in between is wasted money. So a good example of that is, like, let's say we have the Pentium 1 processor, and scientists have already developed the Pentium 4 processor as a prototype. They're like, wow, like, look, we have hyperthreading in it, 1 megabyte of cache, 400 megahertz front side bus. This is an amazing processor. God, the Pentium 4 original processor was so good. God, it was so good. Hyper-threading was amazing. 400 megahertz front side bus compared to the 100 megahertz front side bus of Pentium 3s. It's not even close. It was the best processor ever made. Anyway, so we all have the Pentium 1, right? So the new scientists in Intel cannot say, okay, let's just start producing mass Pentium 4s and sell those, right? Because all of the research that they put into on the Pentium 2 and the Pentium 3 is gone. Right? They can't put out the Pentium 4 onto the shelves and then also put a Pentium 2 next to it, because you're going to go, well, I'm going to buy this one because it's like 3 generations higher than this. Or 2, or it's like 10 years, 10, 15 years later technology, right? Of course I'm going to buy this new one. And it's a lot of wasted research and effort. My networking teacher in 10th grade actually told me that he was a chemist and a network engineer. He was everything. This guy was crazy. I don't even know why he was teaching at a high school. But he told us all that. He sat us all down and we're talking about things. And he said, they have technology. Like right now we got the Pentium, 4 processor. It's like 1.3 gigahertz to 1.5. Great, right? It's amazing. But they have technology out there that is, in the gigahertz of 5, 6, 7 gigahertz processors that will blow your mind, that exists, but is just basically sitting on a shelf or just being used for research somewhere, waiting to be sold 20 years down the line. And he told us all this, that you can't you can't sell all the stuff in between because it's economically unsound. You would have to sell the Pentium 2, then the Pentium 3, then the Pentium 4 to make all your research money back. And your profit. And it turns out he was totally true. At the time, you're just like, wow, what a wild story. Is that true? But it's totally true. And we see that every day with Bitcoin. We see that every day with the Monero miners that happened. I think that was late 28 or some, I don't remember when that was, but they created the Monero miners, the Bitmain, and then Monero developers decided to fork away because there was too many botnets on the network. And then as soon as they forked away, boom, the hash rate just went down. But before they forked away, a few weeks before, Bitmain was like, oh, look, we got ASIC miners for Monero. And they wanted $12,000 a piece for them. If you looked up the hash rate and went online, it was $200 a day. But by the time everybody got them, the fork already was gone. And then 3 months after that, you received them and couldn't mine Monero on them, just the old algorithms and the old forked coins on the Monero network, like Monero V and Zero and whatever else that they came out with. And you could only mine a few bucks a day. So there was $12,000. Then they're like, we better lower that price. $12,000 a piece. Then they lowered the price to $8,000, then $3,000. Now they're like free. You get one with every three ASICs. So yes, it's totally true that these companies have better technology than you know of, and won't sell it to you until they sell you the previous garbage. And they will use the good stuff, and they will sell you the garbage. It is real, and Bitcoin gets worse and worse over time. The more it gets popular, which is unfortunate. So I think we need to talk about decentralization a little bit more. I think we need to talk about, I think we need to have more proof of keys events. I think we need to take away from the exchanges and bring it back to us. But that's going to be easier said than done. That's all I have for you guys today. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the video, all that good stuff. My social media in the description below. Follow me on it because nobody else does. But I love you, and I'll see you guys next time.